Let's begin with something that might surprise you. The speed at which you learn has very little to do with how intelligent you are. It's a comforting thought, isn't it? Because it means that learning quickly is available to everyone, including you. And it starts with something beautifully simple: adopting a beginner's mind. This ancient concept invites us to approach learning as if we know nothing at all. Imagine looking at the world through the eyes of a child, where everything is fresh and new. When we carry our assumptions and past experiences like heavy baggage, we miss the subtle details that make all the difference. A beginner's mind is light, open, curious. It doesn't judge or compare. It simply observes and absorbs. Think of it as wiping the slate clean each time you sit down to learn something new. The expert, who thinks they already know, often learns more slowly than the beginner who knows they don't. This naturally leads us to something equally powerful: the growth mindset. Your brain is not fixed. It's not set in stone. Every time you struggle with something difficult, every time you make a mistake and try again, your brain is actually rewiring itself, creating new pathways, growing stronger. People with a growth mindset understand that abilities can be developed. They see challenges not as threats, but as opportunities. When someone with a fixed mindset says, "I can't do this," someone with a growth mindset says, "I can't do this yet." That single word changes everything. It transforms failure from a dead end into a stepping stone. And speaking of failure, learning to embrace imperfection is perhaps one of the most liberating shifts you can make. We live in a world that celebrates perfection, that shows us only the polished final products. But learning is messy. It's supposed to be messy. When you give yourself permission to be imperfect, to stumble, to produce work that isn't quite right, you remove the single biggest obstacle to rapid learning: fear. Fear of being wrong. Fear of looking foolish. Fear of not being good enough. But here's the secret that fast learners know: imperfection is not the opposite of progress. Imperfection is progress. Every rough draft, every awkward attempt, every mistake is proof that you're learning. As you move through this journey of imperfect progress, it becomes important to celebrate small wins, not just the big achievements, the major milestones, but the tiny victories that happen every single day. You remembered that vocabulary word. You understood that concept just a little bit better than yesterday. You practiced for 10 minutes when you didn't feel like it. These small wins are like breadcrumbs leading you forward. They create momentum. They tell your brain, yes, this is working. Keep going. When you acknowledge these moments, you're not just being kind to yourself. You're actually programming your mind to recognize progress, to seek out more of it, to stay motivated even when the goal seems far away. This brings us to an interesting paradox. While celebrating progress is important, fast learners also know to focus on process over outcome. When you're obsessed with the end result, every step that doesn't get you there immediately feels like failure. But when you fall in love with the process itself, with the daily practice, with the act of learning, suddenly the outcome takes care of itself. It's like watching a flower grow. You don't pull on the petals to make it bloom faster. You water it, give it sunlight, tend to it day after day, and the blooming happens naturally. Your learning works the same way. Trust the process, and the results will come. But why are you learning this in the first place? This question is more important than you might think. Finding your why is the foundation upon which everything else is built. Your why is your anchor when motivation fades, when the material gets difficult, when you'd rather do anything else. It's not enough to say, "I want to learn this because it's useful." dig deeper. How will this skill change your life? What doors will it open? Who will you become once you've mastered it? When your why is clear and compelling, when you can feel it emotionally, not just understand it intellectually, you'll find energy you didn't know you had. You'll push through obstacles that would have stopped you before. And once you know your why, you can begin to visualize success. Close your eyes for a moment and see yourself already possessing the skill you're learning. What does that feel like? What are you doing? How has your life changed? Visualization isn't just daydreaming. It's a powerful tool that athletes, performers, and top learners use to program their minds for success. Your brain doesn't fully distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and real ones. When you repeatedly visualize yourself succeeding, you're creating neural patterns that make that success more likely. You're rehearsing victory before it happens. But here's where most people stop, and it's a mistake. You must also visualize obstacles. This might seem counterintuitive, but it's incredibly effective. Imagine the challenges you'll face. See yourself getting frustrated, hitting a plateau, wanting to quit. Now, watch yourself overcome those obstacles. Visualize how you'll respond when things get hard. This mental rehearsal prepares you for reality. It removes the shock and disappointment when difficulties arise, because you've already seen them coming. You've already practiced your response. This is called mental contrasting, and it's one of the most underrated techniques in accelerated learning. Along this journey, the words you say to yourself matter more than you realize. Positive affirmations are not just feel-good phrases. They're instructions you're giving to your subconscious mind. When you repeatedly tell yourself, "I am capable of learning this," or "I improve a little bit every day," you're actually shifting your self-concept. You're becoming the kind of person who learns quickly. The key is to make your affirmations believable and present tense. Not, "I will be a fast learner someday," but "I am becoming a faster learner every day." Feel the difference? One is a distant hope. The other is a current reality. And finally, at the heart of all rapid learning lies something beautifully simple. Stay curious. Curiosity is the fuel that powers everything else. When you're genuinely curious about something, learning doesn't feel like work. It feels like exploration, like adventure. Children learn at an astounding rate, not because they have special techniques, but because they're curious about everything. They ask endless questions. They investigate. They wonder. You have that same capacity within you. When you approach your learning with genuine curiosity, when you let yourself be fascinated by the subject matter, when you ask why and how and what if, you unlock a natural learning state that no amount of forced discipline can match. These 10 principles form the foundation. They're about mindset, about who you are as a learner. Because fast learning isn't really about intelligence. It's about approach. It's about attitude. It's about seeing yourself and the learning process in a new light. And now that foundation is set, we can build something remarkable upon it. Motivation is fickle. It arrives in waves of enthusiasm and disappears just as quickly. If you rely solely on motivation, your learning will be sporadic, intense bursts, followed by long droughts. Fast learners understand something crucial. Consistency beats intensity. They've learned to create systems that keep them engaged even when motivation fades. Let's explore the engagement hacks that maintain momentum without burnout. Human beings respond powerfully to rewards, and you can use this to your advantage. Reward yourself strategically after completing learning milestones. Not constantly, which would dilute the effect, but after meaningful achievements. Finished a difficult chapter? Enjoy your favorite coffee. completed a week of consistent practice. Watch that movie you've been wanting to see. These rewards create positive associations with learning. Your brain begins to anticipate the pleasure, making it easier to start. The key is proportionality. Small rewards for small wins, larger rewards for larger achievements. And the rewards should be things you genuinely enjoy, not things you feel you should enjoy. The gaming industry understands motivation better than almost anyone, and we can learn from them through gamification. Turn your learning into a game with points, levels, and achievements. Create a point system for your study hours. Level up when you master a concept. Give yourself achievements for milestones. This might sound childish, but it works because it leverages powerful psychological principles, clear progress indicators, immediate feedback, escalating challenges. Apps like Habitica do this automatically, but you can create your own system with a simple chart or spreadsheet. The visual progress becomes its own reward. Specifically, gamify your learning by creating challenges within your study. Can you explain this concept in under 2 minutes? Can you solve these problems without looking at your notes? Can you teach this to someone else clearly? These micro-challenges add an element of play to what might otherwise feel like drudgery. They create engagement through challenge and achievement. And they provide natural assessment points. You instantly know whether you've met the challenge or need more work. Extend this idea to learning challenges with others. Create competitions with fellow learners. Who can complete the most practiced problems this week? Who can create the clearest explanation of a difficult concept? These challenges add social motivation to personal motivation. Accountability to others often pushes us further than accountability to ourselves. And the social comparison, when kept friendly and supportive, drives everyone to higher performance. Don't underestimate the power of incorporating humor into your learning. When you laugh, stress decreases and engagement increases. Create silly mnemonics. Make up ridiculous stories to remember facts. Watch educational content creators who make their subject entertaining. Humor makes information more memorable. Emotions and memory are deeply linked. We remember things that made us feel something, whether that's awe, surprise, or laughter. A boring fact forgotten immediately becomes memorable when wrapped in an absurd or funny context. Give yourself permission to be playful with the material. Visual representation of goals can be surprisingly motivating. Vision boards aren't just for self-help enthusiasts. They're powerful motivational tools. Create a collage of what achieving this learning goal means to you. The job you'll get, the skill you'll have, the person you'll become. Place it where you'll see it daily. This constant visual reminder keeps your why front and center. On days when motivation is low, your vision board answers the question, why am I doing this? And that answer might be just enough to get you to your desk. Perhaps the most powerful engagement hack is to connect learning with your interests. The more you can link what you're learning to what you already care about, the easier engagement becomes. Learning statistics? Apply it to analyzing your favorite sport. Learning a language? Use it to access media you're passionate about. Learning history? Focus on the aspects that intersect with your interests. This isn't always possible, especially with the required material. But wherever you can find connections between the subject and your genuine interests, you create intrinsic motivation that doesn't require willpower to sustain. Motivation follows action more often than action follows motivation. This is counterintuitive, but profound. We think we need to feel motivated before we act, but often the opposite is true. Start, even when you don't feel like it, and motivation emerges in the process. Commit to just 5 minutes. Often, once you start, you'll continue. And even if you don't, 5 minutes is better than 0. This is where your habits and systems become crucial. They bypass the motivation question entirely. You don't need to feel motivated to brush your teeth. You just do it. When learning becomes habitual, it transcends motivation. The real secret is that consistency beats intensity every single time. The person who studies 1 hour daily will learn far more than the person who crams for 8 hours once a week. Consistency builds cumulative advantage. Each session builds on the last. Information consolidates between sessions. Neural pathways strengthen through regular activation. And consistency is psychologically easier. 1 hour feels manageable, where 8 feels overwhelming. Marathon study sessions might feel productive in the moment, but they're usually inefficient and lead to burnout. Sustainable learning is consistent learning. These engagement hacks aren't about tricking yourself into learning. They're about working with human psychology rather than against it. We're not purely rational beings who simply execute plans. We're emotional, social, game-playing creatures who respond to rewards, challenges, humor, and meaning. When you design your learning system to engage these aspects of your humanity, consistency becomes natural rather than forced. There's a persistent myth of the lone genius, isolated in their study, mastering knowledge through solitary effort. And while solitude has its place in deep learning, the truth is that learning alone is slower. Community accelerates learning in ways that individual effort cannot match. Other people provide motivation, accountability, diverse perspectives, and collective knowledge that would take you years to develop alone. Let's explore how social learning creates exponential growth. The first step is simple but powerful. Join a community of people learning the same thing you are, whether it's an online forum, a local meetup, a formal class, or an informal study group. Being around others on the same journey changes everything. You realize you're not alone in your struggles. You see how others approach problems. You discover resources you didn't know existed. Communities create a shared culture of learning, where asking questions is encouraged, where helping others is valued, where everyone's progress inspires everyone else. The energy of collective learning is irreplaceable. Within that community, find accountability partners, specific individuals who check in with you regularly about your progress. You make commitments to each other. You share your goals and deadlines. You report on what you've accomplished. This accountability is powerful because we're often more willing to disappoint ourselves than to disappoint others. When you know someone will ask about your progress, you're more likely to make that progress. Choose accountability partners who are serious about their own learning, who will be honest with you, who will both support and challenge you. The right accountability partner can double your learning speed. The internet has made finding your learning community easier than ever. Online forums and communities for almost any subject imaginable exist. Reddit communities, Discord servers, specialized platforms like Stack Overflow for programmers, or Duolingo forums for language learners. These spaces provide 24/7 access to collective knowledge. You can ask questions at 2 a.m. and get answers. You can learn from others' questions and the expert responses. You can share your progress and receive encouragement. The asynchronous nature means you're never alone, even when learning at odd hours. One of the most valuable relationships you can cultivate is with a mentor, someone further along the path who can guide you. A mentor has already made the mistakes you're about to make. They can help you avoid common pitfalls, recommend the best resources, and provide insights that only experience can teach. Finding a mentor might feel daunting, but many people are surprisingly willing to help if you approach them respectfully, demonstrate genuine interest, and make it easy for them to help you. You're not asking for hours of their time every week. Even occasional check-ins can be invaluable. And often, the act of teaching you helps them solidify their own knowledge. Structured learning opportunities, like workshops or classes, aren't just about the content, though that matters too. They're about immersion in a learning environment with structured progression and expert guidance. In workshops, you learn alongside others, practice together, receive immediate feedback. Classes provide curricula designed to build knowledge systematically. The investment, whether time, money, or both, creates commitment. And the social contract of showing up, participating, engaging, pushes you beyond what you do alone. If possible, prioritize in-person learning experiences for their unmatched social learning benefits. For more intensive learning experiences, participate in hackathons or similar intensive events. In a hackathon, you might spend 24 to 48 hours immersed in a single challenge, working with a team under time pressure. This compressed, high-intensity experience accelerates learning dramatically. You're forced to learn quickly to contribute. You see how experienced people approach problems. You develop skills rapidly under pressure. While you can't live in hackathon mode constantly, occasional intensive experiences create leaps in capability that months of casual study might not achieve. Professional contexts provide unique learning opportunities. Attend networking events in your field, even if networking feels uncomfortable. These events expose you to practitioners, trends, problems, and solutions you wouldn't encounter in books. Conversations with people doing the work reveal the gap between theory and practice. You learn what actually matters in the field versus what's academically interesting but practically irrelevant. You make connections that might lead to opportunities, and you're reminded that the knowledge you're acquiring has real-world application. Discussion is one of the most underrated learning tools. Engage in group discussions about what you're learning. When you articulate your understanding, when you debate interpretations, when you defend your perspective and adjust based on others' insights, learning deepens exponentially. Discussion reveals gaps you didn't know existed. It exposes you to interpretations you never considered. It forces you to think on your feet, to organize thoughts coherently under pressure. Good discussion partners don't just let you speak unchallenged. They probe, question, push back, help you refine your thinking. Finally, creating a learning blog or public documentation of your learning journey serves multiple purposes. It forces you to organize and articulate what you're learning clearly. It creates accountability. Once you've publicly committed to learning something, you're more likely to follow through. It builds a portfolio demonstrating your knowledge and progress. It attracts like-minded learners who can become collaborators or accountability partners. And teaching through writing, as you explain concepts publicly, reinforces your own understanding. Your blog becomes both a learning tool and a networking tool. The pattern is clear. Isolation limits learning, while community accelerates it. Other people provide resources, motivation, accountability, feedback, and perspectives that you simply cannot generate alone. This doesn't mean you should never study alone. Deep focus often requires solitude. But it means building social connections into your learning system, leveraging the power of community to amplify your individual efforts. Learning is not just an individual cognitive act. It's a social phenomenon that grows more powerful when shared. We've covered mindset, planning, brain science, practice techniques, feedback, environment, biology, motivation, and community. Now, we arrive at the advanced layer, the meta level, where you step back and optimize the learning system itself. This is where you become not just a learner, but a master of learning. It begins with using resources strategically. Not all learning resources are created equal. Some are comprehensive but inefficient. Others are efficient but superficial. Knowing which resources to use when is a skill itself. When first learning a topic, prioritize curated resources, textbooks, courses, tutorials designed for beginners. They provide structure and prevent you from getting lost. As you advance, original sources become more valuable. Research papers, expert writings, primary materials. And don't overlook human resources. Experts you can consult, communities you can tap. Strategic resource use means matching the right resource to your current learning stage and specific needs. Technology can dramatically accelerate learning when used well. Use technology not as a distraction, but as a force multiplier. Spaced repetition apps like Anki automate optimal review scheduling. Language learning apps provide structured practice. Platforms like Khan Academy or Coursera offer world-class instruction for free or low cost. AI assistants can answer questions instantly and provide explanations tailored to your level. But technology is a tool, not a solution. It amplifies your efforts, but doesn't replace them. Use it intentionally, not passively. Choose tools that align with your learning goals, not just what's trendy. No single learning method works for everyone, or even for every subject. This is why you must experiment with different methods. Try mind mapping and see if it helps. Test the Feynman technique. Attempt interleave practice. Use teaching as learning. Some techniques will resonate immediately, others won't work for you at all. This experimentation is not wasted time. It's an investment in understanding your personal learning system. Over time, you develop a toolkit of techniques and the wisdom to know which tool to use when. Your learning becomes increasingly sophisticated and optimized. Just as methods vary, so do teaching styles. Experiment with different teachers and teaching styles as well. Some teachers are systematic and thorough. Others are energetic and inspiring. Some focus on theory, others on practical application. Different styles will resonate with you in different contexts. For foundational learning, you might prefer thorough, structured teachers. For motivation and inspiration, you might seek energetic presenters. For advanced topics, you might want practitioners sharing real-world experience. Don't assume one teacher can meet all your needs. Seek variety and learn from multiple perspectives. One of the most powerful advanced techniques is cross-training, learning adjacent or complementary skills simultaneously. This creates unexpected synergies. Learning music theory helps you understand mathematics. Learning programming improves logical thinking that helps in almost any field. Learning a second language makes learning a third language easier. These cross-training effects aren't just transfer of specific knowledge. They're the development of general learning capabilities. You become a more versatile thinker. And the connections between fields often spark creative insights neither field alone would generate. In a similar vein, exploratory learning, studying topics purely out of curiosity, without immediate practical application, often pays surprising dividends. Steve Jobs famously credited his calligraphy class, taken just because it interested him, as crucial to Apple's later typography design. You never know when knowledge will become relevant. Following your curiosity builds a broad knowledge base that provides raw material for creative connections. And exploratory learning keeps learning fun, preventing the burnout that can come from purely instrumental, goal-oriented studying. Balance focused learning with exploration. Modern technology offers learning in formats that fit previously wasted time. Audiobooks and podcasts allow you to learn while commuting, exercising, or doing chores. This isn't as deep as focused study, but it's vastly better than nothing. You can absorb a book a week through daily commutes. You can stay current with your field through podcasts. These audio formats are particularly good for general knowledge, stories, concepts, and big picture understanding. They're less effective for procedural knowledge or complex technical material. Use them strategically for appropriate content. Advanced learners think in time, multipliers, techniques that allow parallel learning or accelerated processing. Watching videos at 1.5x or 2x speed when you grasp the material. Reading diagonally for familiar content while slowing down for new concepts. Using one learning session to serve multiple purposes. Practicing a language while learning about a topic you care about. These multipliers accumulate, small efficiency gains across many learning sessions, compound into significantly more learning in the same time. Some skills benefit from dual attention techniques. You can practice some things while doing other things. Vocabulary flashcards while waiting in line. Listening to target language media while exercising. Mentally rehearsing concepts while commuting. This isn't appropriate for learning that requires full focus, but for review, reinforcement, and maintenance of established skills. Dual attention can squeeze learning into otherwise unproductive moments. The key is knowing when you can divide attention without compromising quality. The famous 10,000-hour rule, popularized by Malcolm Gladwell, suggested that mastery requires 10,000 hours of practice, but this is often misunderstood. It's not just any 10,000 hours, it's 10,000 hours of deliberate practice, and the rule is less about the magic number than about the principle, consistency over obsession. You don't need to practice 8 hours a day to master something. 1 hour daily for 10 years equals 3,650 hours. And if that practice is deliberate and well-designed, it's enough to reach expert-level performance in most fields. The professionals who accumulate 10,000 hours aren't necessarily more talented. They're simply more consistent over a longer period. Sustainable, consistent practice beats intense bursts every time. And finally, we arrive at what might be the most important skill, summarization as mastery. Your ability to distill complex information into simple explanations is the ultimate test of understanding. If you can take everything you've learned about a topic and explain it clearly in a few paragraphs or a short talk, you truly understand it. This skill, compression without losing meaning, is the hallmark of expertise. Experts don't know more facts than advanced beginners. They have better mental models that allow them to organize information efficiently. Practice summarization relentlessly. After every book, create a one-page summary. After every course, write a brief guide. This practice forces deep processing and creates incredible clarity. Fast learning is not a talent you're born with. It's a system you build. This system has many components: mindset, planning, understanding brain science, practicing deliberately, seeking feedback, optimizing your environment, caring for your biology, maintaining motivation, leveraging community, and continually improving the system itself. No single technique is magic, but when you combine these principles into a coherent system, when you approach learning systematically rather than haphazardly, your learning speed increases dramatically. You now have the complete system, 100 principles that, taken together, transform how you learn. Some will resonate immediately. Others will make sense only after you try them. Some you'll use constantly, others only in specific situations. Your job now isn't to implement everything at once. That would be overwhelming. Your job is to start somewhere, to experiment, to build your personal learning system incrementally. Because here's the final truth. Once you have the system, you can learn anything. The specific content changes, but the approach remains. Whether you're learning a language, a sport, a musical instrument, a professional skill, or an academic subject, these principles apply. You become not just skilled at one thing, but skilled at becoming skilled. You become a learning expert. And in a rapidly changing world where what you need to know constantly evolves, this might be the most valuable skill of all. So rest now. Let these ideas settle into your mind. Tomorrow, you can begin building your system, one principle at a time. But for now, just rest. We often think of learning as something that happens inside our minds, independent of our surroundings. But this is an illusion. Your environment shapes your learning in profound ways, often without you realizing it. The physical space around you, the sounds you hear, the visual stimuli competing for your attention. All of these either support your focus or drain it away. Let's talk about environmental multipliers, the factors that make learning easier without requiring more effort. The first and perhaps most obvious is to minimize distractions. But this is easier said than done in our hyper-connected world. Every ping, every notification, every visible distraction fragments your attention. Research shows it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully refocus after an interruption. 23 minutes. If you're interrupted 3 times in an hour, you've essentially lost that entire hour to attention residue. The mental baggage left by each distraction. Your phone is the worst offender. Even having it visible on the desk, even face down and silent, reduces cognitive capacity. The solution is radical. Remove distractions completely from your learning environment. Phone in another room, email closed, door shut. Create a bubble of focus. For serious learning sessions, implement a no distractions rule with the commitment of a sacred boundary. This means negotiating with family or roommates about your focus time. It means setting expectations with yourself. No, just checking anything. No exceptions. This might feel extreme, but consider 1 hour of distraction-free learning accomplishes more than 3 hours of interrupted, fragmented studying. The math is compelling. When you know you have a distraction-free block ahead, your brain settles into deeper focus more quickly. It trusts that the focus will be honored. Beyond removing distractions, you must optimize your space intentionally. Your learning environment should support the mental state you're trying to achieve. Good lighting is essential. Natural light when possible, as it supports alertness and mood. A comfortable, but not too comfortable chair that supports good posture. Everything you need within reach, so you don't break focus hunting for materials. Temperature matters too. Slightly cool rooms tend to support focus better than warm ones. Think of your learning space as a tool. It should be designed with as much care as you design any other tool for optimal performance. In our digital age, it's not just physical space that matters. Declutter your digital space as well. Close unnecessary browser tabs. Organize your files logically. Use apps like Forest or Freedom that block distracting websites during focus time. Your digital environment can be just as chaotic as a messy desk. Every open tab is a micro-decision competing for mental resources. Should I click this? Do I need this? What was this for? Clear, organized digital spaces reduce cognitive load, freeing mental energy for actual learning. Interestingly, the same environment every day can become stale and reduce engagement. This is where changing locations strategically can refresh your mind. The coffee shop one day, the library the next, a park when weather permits. Different environments engage your brain differently, create different contextual memories. This variation can actually strengthen recall. You encode the memory in multiple contexts rather than just one. Obviously, You can't change locations for every study session, but periodic changes can reinvigorate your practice when it starts feeling routine. The question of sound is personal and fascinating. Some people need complete silence. Others find that background music helps them focus. Research suggests that music without lyrics, particularly at around 60 to 70 beats per minute, can support focus by masking irregular environmental noise without creating new distractions. Classical music, lo-fi hip-hop, ambient soundscapes, these can create an auditory cocoon that signals to your brain, it's time to focus. But this is highly individual. Experiment. Notice what actually helps versus what you merely like. The goal is focus, not entertainment. Nature has a remarkable effect on cognitive function and well-being. Studies show that even brief exposure to natural environments improves attention, reduces mental fatigue, and enhances learning. If possible, incorporate nature into your learning environment. Study near a window with a view of trees. Take your breaks outside. Even having plants in your study space or images of nature can have measurable effects. We evolved in natural environments, and our brains still respond to them positively. Nature restores the attentional resources that focused learning depletes. When learning complex or multifaceted material, use visual aids strategically. Posters of key concepts on the wall, charts, diagrams, or mind maps visible in your peripheral vision. These aren't just decorations, they're environmental triggers for recall. Your brain constantly processes visual information, even when you're not consciously looking at it. Strategic visual aids turn your environment into a passive teaching tool, reinforcing concepts through mere exposure. This is particularly powerful for languages, formulas, or frameworks you're trying to internalize. Color isn't just aesthetic, it's functional. Use color coding systematically to organize information and create mental associations. Blue for main concepts, red for important warnings, green for examples. Whatever system makes sense to you. The consistency matters more than the specific colors. Color coding creates additional retrieval pathways in memory. You don't just remember the information, you remember its color, and that memory helps trigger the content. Highlighters, colored pens, colored folders, digital color tags. Use color as a cognitive tool. Your environment is not neutral. It's either helping you learn or making learning harder. The good news is that you have tremendous control here. You can't always control your genetics, your past education, or your innate abilities. But you can control your space. You can design an environment that supports deep focus, minimizes friction, and reinforces learning. These environmental multipliers don't require more time or effort. They make your existing time and effort more effective. Small environmental changes can create surprisingly large impacts on learning outcomes. Here's a truth that many ambitious learners resist. You are not just a mind, you are a biological organism, and that organism has physical needs that directly affect cognitive performance. You can have perfect technique, ideal environment, and clear goals. But if your biology is depleted, learning becomes difficult or impossible. Learning speed is limited by energy, not time. Let's talk about the biological foundations of rapid learning. Sleep is not optional, and it's not a luxury. It's when your brain consolidates learning, moving information from temporary to permanent storage. During deep sleep, your brain replays the day's learning, strengthening neural connections. During REM sleep, it integrates new knowledge with existing knowledge, creating insights and connections you couldn't see while awake. Studies show that people who sleep after learning retain dramatically more than those who stay awake. And chronic sleep deprivation Anything less than 7 to 9 hours regularly impairs learning capacity as much as alcohol intoxication. If you're sacrificing sleep to study more, you're actually learning less. Protect your sleep as fiercely as you protect your study time. But you can't focus intensely for hours without pause. Your brain needs recovery cycles throughout the day. This is why you must take regular breaks. The Pomodoro technique, which we'll discuss specifically in a moment, structures breaks systematically. But the principle applies beyond any specific technique. Focused work requires periodic rest. Breaks aren't wasted time. They're essential recovery that makes focus possible. During breaks, your brain processes what you've learned, making connections, consolidating memories. The diffuse mode of thinking that happens during rest is as important as the focused mode during study. The Pomodoro technique structures this perfectly. 25 minutes of focused work, followed by a 5-minute break. After 4 cycles, take a longer 15 to 30-minute break. This rhythm matches your brain's natural attention cycles. 25 minutes is long enough for deep focus, but short enough that you can maintain intensity. The breaks prevent mental fatigue. The technique also gamifies focus. You're not committing to hours of work, just the next 25 minutes. That psychological shift makes starting easier and maintains motivation. The ticking timer creates gentle urgency. Millions of learners swear by this technique because it works with human psychology and biology rather than against it. Movement and learning are deeply connected. Staying physically active isn't just about fitness, it's about brain health. Exercise increases blood flow to the brain, promotes the growth of new neurons, and enhances the connections between existing ones. It releases BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is like fertilizer for your brain. People who exercise regularly show better memory, faster learning, and greater cognitive flexibility. You don't need to become an athlete. Even a daily 20-minute walk creates measurable cognitive benefits. The relationship is so strong that some students study while walking on a treadmill desk. You can integrate movement into learning even more directly. Incorporate movement into your study sessions. Stand while reviewing flashcards. Pace while reciting information. Use gestures when explaining concepts. Movement activates your motor cortex, creating additional neural pathways associated with the information. This embodied cognition means you're not just storing information abstractly, you're storing it in your body's movement patterns as well. And movement breaks up sedentary time, maintaining alertness and focus. What you eat affects what you can think. Nutrition directly impacts cognitive function. Your brain is incredibly metabolically active, consuming about 20% of your body's energy, despite being only 2% of your body weight. It needs consistent fuel. Complex carbohydrates for sustained energy. Healthy fats for cell membrane function. Protein for neurotransmitter production. Omega-3 fatty acids, found in fish and walnuts, specifically support learning and memory. Heavy processed meals create energy crashes. Strategic eating means light, nutritious meals that sustain energy rather than spike and crash it. Many learners find that eating smaller, more frequent meals maintains stable focus better than traditional large meals. And of course, stay hydrated. Even mild dehydration, just 1 to 2% body water loss, measurably impairs cognitive function. Attention suffers, memory suffers, mood deteriorates. Your brain is about 75% water, and it needs adequate hydration to function optimally. The headache you get during long study sessions might not be from the material. It might be from dehydration. Keep water nearby. Sip regularly. This simple biological maintenance has outsized effects on learning capacity. If you find yourself struggling to focus, drink water before assuming you need more coffee. Stress narrows focus to immediate threats, which is useful in emergencies but terrible for learning. Mindful breathing activates your parasympathetic nervous system, shifting you from stress mode to rest and digest mode. This isn't mystical, it's biological. Deep, slow breathing, in for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4, signals to your brain that you're safe, that you can allocate resources to learning rather than survival. Take several deep breaths before starting a study session. Use breath work when you notice tension building. Breathing is the most accessible tool you have for regulating your nervous system. This connects to the broader practice of mindfulness, present moment awareness without judgment. When you practice mindfulness, you train your attention like a muscle. You notice when your mind wanders and gently bring it back. This skill directly translates to learning. Focused study is sustained mindfulness on your subject matter. Meditation apps, formal mindfulness practice, or even mindful moments throughout your day all strengthen this attentional capacity. And mindfulness reduces the rumination and worry that steal mental energy. You become more present with what you're learning, rather than half present while your mind spins anxious stories. Finally, practice gratitude, not as a feel-good exercise, but as a cognitive tool. Gratitude shifts your mindset from scarcity to abundance, from what's missing to what's present. This matters because anxiety and negativity consume mental resources. They create background noise that makes learning harder. When you regularly acknowledge what's going well, what you're grateful for in your learning journey, you create a positive emotional context. Positive emotions broaden attention and thinking, while negative emotions narrow them. Gratitude journals, gratitude meditation, or simply pausing to appreciate your progress. All of these support the mental state in which learning flourishes. Your body and mind are not separate. They're one integrated system. Neglect the body, and the mind suffers. Care for the body, and the mind performs at its peak. These biological factors, sleep, breaks, movement, nutrition, hydration, breathing, mindfulness, gratitude, aren't extras you add if you have time. They're the foundation on which all effective learning rests. Knowing how to learn is valuable, but knowing how to practice, that's where transformation happens. Because here's an uncomfortable truth. Most people practice wrong. They put in hours and wonder why they're not improving. The difference between amateurs and rapid improvers isn't how much they practice, it's how they practice. This begins with understanding deliberate practice. Anders Ericsson, who spent decades studying expert performance, discovered that what separates the great from the good isn't talent or time. It's the quality of practice. Deliberate practice is focused, intentional, and just beyond your current ability. It's not playing songs you already know. It's working on the specific technique you haven't mastered. It's not comfortable. It requires full concentration. It targets specific weaknesses. And most importantly, it includes immediate feedback, so you know whether you're improving. Deliberate practice is the difference between someone who plays guitar for 20 years and someone who becomes a virtuoso in 5. Time invested doesn't equal progress. Deliberate practice does. This kind of practice demands focused practice sessions. You cannot practice deliberately while distracted, multitasking, or running on autopilot. Your phone is off. Notifications are silenced. For this period of time, nothing exists except you and the skill you're developing. Research suggests that most people can only sustain this level of focused intensity for about 90 minutes at a time before mental fatigue sets in. That's fine. 2 focused 90-minute sessions will produce far more growth than 8 hours of distracted dabbling. Quality over quantity. Presence over duration. When you practice with complete focus, every minute compounds. But focused sessions don't have to be long. This is where micro-learning shines. You can make meaningful progress in small increments. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. These micro-sessions are particularly effective for review, for quick drills, for maintaining skills. Waiting for the perfect hour-long practice window often means never practicing at all. Micro-learning says, use the time you have. 5 minutes of focused practice beats 0 minutes of imaginary future practice. And these small sessions accumulate. Over a week, they add up to substantial practice time. Over a month, they create visible progress. As you practice, remember to vary your practice. The brain learns through contrast and comparison. If you always practice in the same way, under the same conditions, your skill becomes brittle. It works in that specific context, but nowhere else. Vary your practice conditions. If you're learning public speaking, practice in different rooms, at different times, with different audiences. If you're learning a language, speak with different partners about different topics. This variation makes your skill robust and flexible. You're not just learning to perform, you're learning to adapt. Taking this further, simulated environments allow you to practice in conditions that mimic real-world challenges. Pilots train in flight simulators. Surgeons practice on virtual patients. You can create simulations for whatever you're learning. If you're preparing for a job interview, set up a mock interview with similar pressure and time constraints. If you're learning to code, build projects that simulate real client requirements. Simulations provide a safe space to make mistakes while experiencing realistic pressure. They bridge the gap between theoretical knowledge and practical application. Real-life simulations take this even further by practicing in actual conditions or as close as possible. Don't just practice your presentation in your bedroom. Practice it in the actual conference room if you can. Don't just study traffic laws. Drive with an instructor in real traffic. There's no substitute for reality. The stakes, the pressure, the unexpected variables, these are impossible to fully replicate. Whenever possible, practice in the environment where you'll actually need the skill. This removes the shock of novelty when the real moment arrives. Another powerful technique is shadowing, observing and mimicking experts in real time. Want to improve your public speaking? Watch expert speakers and try to mirror their pacing, their gestures, their vocal patterns. Learning a new language? Shadow native speakers, repeating their phrases with their intonation and rhythm. Shadowing helps you internalize patterns that would be difficult to learn through explicit instruction. You're not just learning the what, you're absorbing the how through direct imitation. Role reversal flips the script entirely and creates deep understanding. If you're learning to sell, play the role of the customer. If you're learning to design, become the user. This perspective shift reveals insights you'd never discover from your usual vantage point. You understand not just what to do, but why it matters. You anticipate objections, confusion, needs. Role reversal builds empathy and understanding simultaneously, making your practice more nuanced and effective. The ultimate test of understanding is teaching others. When you commit to teaching something, your learning shifts into a higher gear. You can't just understand it vaguely. You need to understand it clearly enough to make someone else understand. Teaching exposes your weak points immediately. When a student asks why, and you can't answer, you've found your next learning target. Teaching also reinforces your own knowledge through repetition and elaboration. Volunteer to tutor. Explain concepts to friends. Create content online. Every time you teach, you learn twice. And throughout all of this, maintain your purpose. Practice with real-world relevance in mind. Don't just do exercises. Apply what you're learning to actual problems you care about. If you're learning photography, don't just take random photos. Document something meaningful to you. If you're learning to code, don't just complete tutorials. Build something you actually want to use. When practice connects to purpose, to real outcomes that matter to you, the motivation sustains itself. You're not grinding through drills. You're building something real. Practice doesn't make perfect. That old saying is wrong. Practice makes permanent. What you practice is what you'll be able to do. If you practice poorly, you'll permanently encode poor performance. But when you practice deliberately, with focus, with variation, with feedback, with purpose, that's when rapid improvement happens. That's when hours of practice actually translate into measurable skill. You can have perfect technique, ideal practice conditions, and complete focus. But without feedback, your improvement will be slow and uncertain. Feedback is the difference between practicing and improving. It's the difference between repeating mistakes 1,000 times and correcting them quickly. Fast learners understand this deeply. They close the loop faster than everyone else. It starts with being willing to seek feedback actively. Most people avoid feedback because it feels like criticism. But feedback is simply information about your performance. It's data you can use to improve. The fastest learners don't wait for feedback to find them. They hunt it down. They ask experts for critique. They request detailed evaluations. They specifically ask, "What's one thing I could improve?" This question is magic because it's specific and action-oriented. General feedback is often useless. "That was good" tells you nothing. Your transitions between points need more clarity, gives you something to work on. Seek specific, actionable feedback at every opportunity. Your peers are an often overlooked source of valuable feedback. Peer reviews create a collaborative learning environment where everyone improves together. Your peers are learning the same material, facing similar challenges. They can spot mistakes you've become blind to. They can offer perspectives you haven't considered. And the act of giving feedback to others deepens your own understanding. You're forced to think critically about what good performance looks like. Schedule regular peer review sessions, exchange work, critique each other constructively. The learning multiplies, but external feedback isn't enough. You must develop the ability to conduct self-assessments honestly. This means stepping back from your work and evaluating it objectively, as if someone else created it. Record yourself presenting and watch it critically. Read your writing as if you didn't write it. Compare your work against expert examples. What's different? What's missing? What could be better? Self-assessment requires brutal honesty and humility. It's easy to fool yourself into thinking you're better than you are. But skilled self-assessment means you don't need to wait for a teacher to tell you what's wrong. You can identify and correct problems immediately. To make self-assessment systematic, implement regular check-ins with yourself. Every week, sit down and review your progress. What did you learn? What's still confusing? What strategies worked? What didn't? These check-ins create accountability to yourself. They prevent weeks of directionless effort. They help you notice patterns. Maybe you focus better in the morning, or maybe a certain study technique consistently produces better results. Regular check-ins turn learning from a vague effort into a measurable, optimizable process. Taking this deeper, reflective practice means examining not just what you did, but how you did it and why. After a practice session, spend a few minutes reflecting. What felt difficult? What felt easy? What surprised you? What would you do differently next time? This metacognitive awareness, thinking about your thinking, accelerates learning dramatically. You're not just accumulating experience, you're extracting wisdom from that experience. You're building a mental model of effective practice that improves with each session. Reflection becomes even more powerful when you reflect on learning itself. Not just, did I learn this concept, but how did I learn this concept? What made it click? What approach worked? When you understand how you learn best, you can deliberately recreate those conditions. You become your own best teacher because you understand your own learning process intimately. Some people learn best through visual diagrams, others through discussion. Some need to move while learning. There's no universal best method, only what works best for you. Reflection reveals your personal learning patterns. Memory is fragile and fleeting, which is why documenting your journey is so valuable. Keep a learning journal. Write down what you're studying, what you're struggling with, what insights you've gained. Future, you will thank past you for this record. You'll be able to see your progress over months and years in ways that daily experience obscures. You'll notice patterns across different learning projects. And when you hit a plateau or feel discouraged, you can look back and see how far you've come. Documentation turns ephemeral experience into permanent wisdom. One of the most effective forms of documentation is to summarize and teach back. After learning something new, immediately try to teach it to someone else, or write an explanation for someone who doesn't know it. This forces you to organize the information, identify the key points, and explain it clearly. Teaching back reveals gaps instantly. If you can't explain it clearly, you don't understand it yet. This immediate feedback loop prevents the illusion of learning, that false confidence where you think you know something because it seemed clear when the teacher explained it. Make summarization a habit by creating key takeaways after every learning session. 3 to 5 bullet points. What were the main concepts? What's the practical application? What do I still need to clarify? This simple practice has multiple benefits. It forces encoding, moving information from short-term to long-term memory. It creates natural spaced repetition points, and it builds a personalized reference library. Your key takeaway notes become the perfect review material because they're in your own words, focused on what matters to you. Taking this practice further, create summary sheets for major topics or modules. These aren't just notes, they're distilled essence, 1 or 2 pages maximum, that capture the core concepts, relationships, and applications. Creating these summary sheets is a learning exercise in itself. You must understand deeply enough to compress information without losing meaning. And once created, they become powerful review tools. You can refresh your knowledge on an entire topic in minutes by reviewing your summary sheet. Feedback loops create exponential improvement. Each cycle makes the next cycle more effective. You practice, get feedback, adjust, practice again with better technique. The corrections compound. Small adjustments accumulate into major transformations. Linear practice creates linear improvement, but practice with tight feedback loops creates exponential improvement because you're not just adding more practice hours. You're multiplying the effectiveness of each hour. Fast learners obsess over feedback because they understand this multiplier effect. They don't just work hard, they work smart, constantly calibrating and correcting their approach based on fresh information about their performance. Now that we've established the right mindset, let's talk about something that might seem obvious but is rarely practiced: direction. Because you can have all the motivation in the world, all the curiosity and growth mindset imaginable. But if you're learning randomly, you'll make slow progress. So let's bring clarity to your learning journey. It begins with setting clear goals, and there's a framework that makes this beautifully simple. SMART goals. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. These 5 words transform vague wishes into concrete targets. Instead of saying, "I want to get better at Spanish," a SMART goal says, "I will have a 10-minute conversation in Spanish about daily activities within 3 months." Do you feel the difference? One is foggy and endless. The other gives you a clear destination and a deadline. When your brain knows exactly what you're aiming for, it can plot the most efficient course. Without that clarity, you're wandering in circles, wondering why you're not making progress. But goals alone aren't quite enough. This is where creating learning contracts comes in. A learning contract is an agreement you make with yourself. It's a written commitment that outlines what you'll learn, how you'll learn it, when you'll practice, and how you'll measure success. There's something powerful about putting it in writing. It moves your intention from the realm of "maybe I'll try this" into "this is happening." Your learning contract can be simple, a single page that clarifies your commitment. When motivation wavers, and it will, you can return to this contract and remember the promise you made to yourself. With your goals and contract in place, you'll quickly realize something. There's too much to learn. The information available on any topic is overwhelming. This is where you must prioritize learning tasks. Not everything is equally important. The Pareto principle tells us that roughly 80% of results come from 20% of efforts. Your job as a fast learner is to identify that crucial 20%. What are the core concepts? What are the foundational skills? What will give you the most leverage? When you focus on high-impact learning tasks first, you build momentum quickly. You see results that motivate you to continue. You don't get lost in the weeds of peripheral information. This leads naturally to another critical principle: limit information. In our age of infinite content, this might be the hardest discipline of all. You could spend your entire life just consuming information about a subject without ever actually learning it. Fast learners are ruthless about limiting their information sources. Choose one excellent book instead of 5 mediocre ones. Follow one expert rather than dozens. Complete one course fully before starting another. When you limit information, you go deep instead of wide. You actually master material instead of just skimming the surface of everything. Depth beats breadth when it comes to rapid skill acquisition. And as you engage with this carefully chosen information, remember to practice with purpose. Every practice session should have a clear objective. Not, "I'll practice guitar for an hour," but "I'll practice switching between G and C chords until I can do it smoothly 10 times in a row." Purpose transforms practice from idle repetition into targeted improvement. Your brain needs to know what it's optimizing for. Random practice creates random results. Purposeful practice creates measurable progress. Before each practice session, take just a moment to define what you're trying to improve. That tiny act of clarity will multiply your results. Time is finite, and this brings us to the importance of setting deadlines. Parkinson's law states that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. Without a deadline, your learning can drift on indefinitely. But when you tell yourself, "I will complete this module by Friday," something shifts. You become focused. You eliminate procrastination. You make decisions faster. Deadlines create healthy pressure that accelerates learning. They prevent perfectionism from holding you hostage. They force you to ship, to complete, to move forward. Make your deadlines reasonable but firm, and watch how your learning pace increases. Structure supports speed, which is why establishing a learning routine is so powerful. Your brain loves patterns. When you learn at the same time each day, in the same place, your mind begins to anticipate it. Resistance decreases. The mental effort required to get started diminishes. It becomes automatic, like brushing your teeth. You don't debate whether to do it. You just do it. Your routine doesn't have to be rigid or long. Even 15 minutes at the same time each day will create a groove that makes learning feel effortless. Routine removes the burden of decision and replaces it with the ease of habit. Within that routine, focus on building daily habits that support your learning. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. Each individual action might seem small, but when repeated daily, they create extraordinary results. The habit of reviewing flashcards every morning, the habit of practicing before breakfast, the habit of reading one chapter before bed. These small, consistent actions accumulate into mastery. James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, reminds us that if you improve by just 1% each day, you'll be 37 times better by the end of the year. That's the power of daily habits. They're not dramatic, but they're transformative. Life is unpredictable, though, which is why flexible scheduling matters. Rigid plans break when reality intervenes, and broken plans often lead to abandoned goals. Build flexibility into your learning schedule. If you can't practice in the morning, have an evening backup plan. If you miss a day, don't spiral into guilt and self-criticism. Simply resume the next day. Flexibility isn't permission to be inconsistent. It's wisdom about being human. The goal is long-term consistency, not short-term perfection. A flexible approach helps you maintain your learning through busy seasons, unexpected events, and the natural chaos of life. And finally, let's talk about time blocking, one of the most effective productivity techniques you can apply to learning. Time blocking means dedicating specific blocks of time to specific tasks. From 7 to 7:30 a.m., you're learning Spanish. During this time, nothing else exists. No email, no phone, no distractions. Just you and Spanish. Time blocking creates artificial constraints that boost focus. It also helps you realistically see how much time you have available. When you block out your entire week, you might discover you only have 5 hours for learning instead of the 20 you imagined. That clarity helps you set realistic expectations and make better choices about what to prioritize. Time blocking turns your calendar from a vague wish list into a concrete action plan. Direction beats effort every time. You can work incredibly hard, but if you're heading in the wrong direction, you'll never reach your destination. These 10 principles about clarity, goals, prioritization, and structure aren't exciting or sexy. They're simple, practical, almost boring. But they're the difference between someone who learns a lot and someone who learns quickly. They create the framework within which rapid learning can occur. And now, with both the right mindset and clear direction, you're ready to understand how your brain actually learns. Everything we've discussed so far has been preparation. Now we arrive at the heart of rapid learning, understanding how your brain actually works. Your brain isn't a filing cabinet that stores information neatly. It's a living network that builds connections, recognizes patterns, and constantly rewrites itself. And it has rules. Once you understand these rules, learning becomes dramatically faster. Let's start with chunking. Your working memory can only hold about 4 to 7 pieces of information at once. Try to memorize a random string of numbers like 7, 4, 9, 2, 8, 5, 1, 3, 6, and you'll struggle. But chunk them into groups: 749, 285, 136, and suddenly it becomes manageable. Your brain naturally groups related information into chunks, creating mental shortcuts. When you're learning something new, actively look for ways to chunk the information. Group related concepts together, find the patterns, create categories. Expert chess players don't see individual pieces. They see chunks, patterns, and configurations they've encountered before. This is how they can play dozens of games simultaneously. They've chunked the information. You can do the same with whatever you're learning, but knowing something and being able to recall it are different things. This is where active recall transforms your learning. Most people reread their notes, highlight passages, and review material passively. It feels like studying, but it's incredibly inefficient. Active recall means closing the book and forcing yourself to retrieve the information from memory. It's harder, it feels uncomfortable, but it's exponentially more effective. Every time you successfully recall something, you strengthen that neural pathway. You're not just reviewing, you're literally rewiring your brain. Flashcards work because they force active recall. Testing yourself works. Explaining concepts from memory works. The struggle to remember is not a sign of poor learning. It's the mechanism of deep learning. And when you combine active recall with spaced repetition, you've found the golden formula of memory. Spaced repetition means reviewing information at increasing intervals. You learn something today, review it tomorrow, then 3 days later, then a week later, then a month later. Each successful recall pushes the next review further into the future. This works because of how memory consolidation functions. Your brain needs time to move information from short-term to long-term storage. Cramming might get you through tomorrow's test, but it won't create lasting knowledge. Spaced repetition fights the forgetting curve. It catches information just as it's about to slip away, strengthening it permanently. Apps like Anki automate this process, but even a simple calendar reminder system can work wonders. Now here's something that might surprise you. Interleaved practice. Most people practice one skill at a time until they master it, then move to the next. This is called blocked practice, and while it feels productive, it's less effective than mixing different skills or concepts in the same session. This is interleaving. If you're learning piano, don't just practice scales for an hour, then chords for an hour. Mix them up within the same practice session. If you're studying mathematics, don't do 20 similar problems in a row. Mix problem types. Interleaving is harder. It feels messier, but it forces your brain to actively discriminate between concepts, to choose the right approach, to make connections. It builds flexibility and deeper understanding. Your brain processes information through multiple channels, and dual coding takes advantage of this. When you learn something through both words and images, you create two different memory traces. You can recall the information either through the verbal pathway or the visual one. This redundancy makes memory more robust. If you're studying anatomy, don't just read descriptions, draw diagrams. If you're learning history, don't just memorize dates, create timelines and maps. When verbal and visual information work together, comprehension deepens and retention soars. Your brain is a multimedia processor. Use all its channels. Visualization takes this even further. Your brain's visual processing system is incredibly powerful. It can hold and manipulate complex images with remarkable clarity. When you visualize concepts, you make them concrete. Abstract ideas become mental pictures you can examine from different angles. Einstein famously used thought experiments, visual scenarios he played out in his mind, to develop his theories. You can visualize processes, systems, sequences. See them happening in your mind. This mental rehearsal strengthens understanding in ways that reading alone cannot achieve. Language itself is a tool for learning, particularly through analogies and metaphors. When you encounter something new and unfamiliar, your brain struggles to process it. But when you connect it to something you already know through analogy, understanding snaps into place. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, a simple metaphor that helps millions of students remember a complex concept. Electricity flows like water through pipes, an analogy that makes an invisible phenomenon tangible. Actively seek analogies when learning. Ask yourself, what is this like? The bridge you build from the unknown to the known is the path to understanding. Humans are storytelling creatures. We remember stories far better than we remember isolated facts. This is why storytelling is such a powerful learning tool. When you turn information into a narrative with characters and plot and conflict and resolution, your brain engages differently. It's not just memorizing data points, it's following a journey. Historical events become narratives. Scientific processes become stories. Even mathematics can be framed as stories about relationships between numbers. The information that you weave into stories becomes unforgettable because you're leveraging your brain's natural narrative processing capabilities. Sometimes, the best way to understand how things connect is to see those connections visually. Concept mapping creates a spatial representation of relationships between ideas. You put the main concept in the center and branch out to related concepts, showing how they connect. This externalization of your understanding reveals gaps and clarifies relationships. It transforms a linear list of facts into a web of interconnected knowledge. When you create a concept map, you're not just taking notes, you're actively processing and organizing information in a way that mirrors how your brain actually stores it. Mind mapping takes this even further, with a more organic, free-flowing structure. Starting from a central idea, you branch out in all directions with associated thoughts, images, and keywords. Mind maps engage both hemispheres of your brain, the logical, sequential left side and the visual, intuitive right side. They're particularly useful for brainstorming, planning, and synthesizing large amounts of information. The spatial layout, the colors, the images, all of these elements create multiple retrieval cues that make the information easier to remember and understand. For memorizing specific information, especially sequences or lists, the method of loci is remarkably powerful. Also called the memory palace technique, it leverages your brain's exceptional spatial memory. You imagine a familiar place, your home, you walk to work, and place the items you want to remember at specific locations along a route. To recall the information, you simply take a mental walk through that space. World memory champions use this technique to memorize thousands of random digits. You can use it to remember shopping lists, speech outlines, or any ordered information. It works because your brain evolved to remember spatial environments with incredible precision. When reading textbook material, the SQRW method provides a structured approach: survey, question, read, write. First, survey the chapter, scan headings, images, summaries. Then, turn those headings into questions. Next, read actively, seeking answers to those questions. Finally, write summaries in your own words. This method transforms passive reading into active engagement. You're not just consuming words, you're interrogating the text, dialoguing with it, processing and reorganizing it. Each step serves a purpose in moving information from the page into your understanding. One of the most powerful learning strategies is surprisingly simple: self-explanation. As you learn, Constantly explain to yourself what you're reading and why it makes sense. This happens because this means that this is similar to self-explanation, forces you to make your understanding explicit. It reveals gaps immediately. When you can't explain something, you know exactly what you don't understand yet. It's like having a tutor constantly checking your comprehension, except the tutor is you. This internal dialogue transforms you from a passive recipient into an active sense-maker. And this brings us to perhaps the most famous technique for learning, the Feynman technique, named after the brilliant physicist Richard Feynman. It's beautifully simple. Choose a concept. Explain it in simple language as if teaching a child. Identify gaps in your explanation. Go back and relearn those gaps. Simplify and use analogies. The magic of this technique is that it exposes the illusion of knowledge. You might think you understand something until you try to explain it simply. The Feynman technique demands genuine understanding, not just familiarity. It's humbling and powerful in equal measure. These aren't tricks or shortcuts. They're alignments with how your brain actually processes, stores, and retrieves information. When you work with your brain's natural tendencies instead of against them, learning stops being a struggle and becomes almost inevitable. You're no longer forcing information into your head. You're creating the conditions where understanding naturally emerges. And so we arrive at the end of this journey together. 100 principles, 10 segments, 1 truth. You are capable of learning anything you set your mind to. Let's remember what we've discovered. That learning speed isn't about intelligence. It's about approach. It's about adopting a beginner's mind and embracing imperfection. It's about setting clear goals and building daily habits. It's understanding that your brain has rules, and when you work with those rules through active recall, spaced repetition, and deliberate practice, learning becomes natural. We've seen that practice doesn't make perfect, deliberate practice does. That feedback loops create exponential growth, that your environment either helps or sabotages you, that sleep, movement, and nutrition aren't extras. They're essential. That consistency beats intensity every single time, and that learning speeds up when it's shared, when you find your community and teach what you're learning. But here's what matters most. These aren't just ideas to think about. They're tools to use. You don't need to implement everything at once. Start small. Choose one principle that resonated with you. Try it tomorrow. Then add another. Build your system piece by piece. Because that's the real secret we've been circling this entire time. Fast learning is a system. And systems are built through consistent, small actions repeated over time. So rest now. Let these ideas settle into your mind like seeds in fertile soil. And when you wake, you'll be ready to begin. Not perfectly, not knowing everything, but with clarity, with direction, and with a system that transforms learning from struggle into flow. The question is no longer whether you can learn quickly. The question is, what will you learn first?